Let's jump back into the Fate series with Fate Stay Night Unlimited Blade Works built Archer. And for those that haven't watched the series, Archer is only semi an actual archer, despite his namesake. So just gonna clarify that right off the bat. And specifically about this build, many of my builds take a little while to get off the ground and get up and running. This is actually going to be pretty useful at level 2. So let's get started with a species. And we're going to keep it pretty simple because even though you are a summoned spirit of the idea of an archer, you were essentially human to start, so we're going to go with human. This gives us the feature resourceful, so we automatically get a heroic inspiration once per long rest, right when we finish that long rest, and we get the feature versatile, allowing us to take an origin feat right away. So we're going to take tough because we're going to be doing a lot of fighting. That's kind of your old deal. So we're going to go ahead and benefit that with this feat, giving us an extra 2 hit points of health per level of this overall build. Then when it comes to a background, this person happens to have, I'm trying not to spoil anything, but they are essentially the darkest timeline of a character who lost their parents and a whole bunch of stuff. So because they kind of fall into this weird category, I'm going to go with Wayfarer. This boosts up 3 ability scores if we want them to, which is Dexterity, Wisdom, and Charisma. But we're only going to use 2 of those, allowing us to grant a +1 in one of those and a +2 in the other. This background also gives us proficiency in Insight and Stealth, but we also get the feature Lucky, allowing us to re-roll a d20 an amount of times equal to our proficiency bonus or force disadvantage on an enemy. Then when it comes to our ability scores, we're going to have a point spread that looks like this, being able to really round out a lot of scores all at once. And then we're going to be diving into our first class because we are going to be doing a multi-class. And the one we got to start with to make sure we're a little bit optimized is Fighter. By taking our first level in Fighter, we get a little more health than what we're going to be doing with our multi-class. When we become a fighter, we get proficiency in 2 skills, so we're going to grab Perception because that's generally helpful pretty much all the time, and Acrobatics, so we deal with any grappling while still utilizing our Dexterity whenever we need to, which Acrobatics is just going to be for escaping grapples, and that's it. Then at first level of fighter, we get to choose a fighting style, and this character is very often using 2 daggers. So we want to grab 2 weapon fighting. This allows us to add our modifier to the damage of our offhand attack, and that's going to be especially helpful in just a second, because also at first level of fighter, we get a weapon mastery. We get to choose 3 weapons to have mastery in. Now, you are summoned as an archer, so you are good at archery. So the first one we'll grab is a longbow. Having weapon mastery with a longbow gives us the feature slow. So when you hit a creature with a longbow, their speed is reduced by 10 feet. But what we really want is to utilize our daggers, because daggers give us the weapon mastery feature, Nick. And having the feature Nick is going to be very, very helpful for this build, because the Nick weapon mastery feature allows you to make your offhand bonus action attack as part of your action. So then that frees up your bonus action. And this is going to be very important very soon. Then the last thing you get at first level fighter is Second Wind, allowing you to regain some hit points equal to 1d10 plus your fighter level as a bonus action. We want to do a multi-class right away. It's going to be good. Just trust me. So we're actually going to be jumping over to Monk, and being a monk is going to really boost up using daggers because it gives us the feature martial arts. So when you're using any simple or martial weapon that you are proficient with, you can use your martial arts die instead of the default damage die for the weapon. And daggers only do a d4 of damage, but because of the martial arts feature, you can now do a d6 of damage by default. And the martial arts die increases as you level up in Monk. Then on top of that, he's doing some kicks and stuff on top of using his daggers, and I think that's pretty helpful because using martial arts as a feature allows you to make an unarmed strike as a bonus action for free. And because we have the Nick weapon mastery feature, we can now do 2 attacks with our dagger as our action and 1 attack as our bonus action with an unarmed strike. And all attacks are going to be using our dexterity modifier, which is what we're going to be focusing on early on. There is one key thing we have to realize though, and that's that we have the feature unarmored defense. So basically everything monk related requires us to not wear armor. This makes it so our armor class equals 10 plus our dexterity modifier plus our wisdom modifier, but that's okay because in the show, he's not necessarily wearing armor, he's just wearing like a trench coat, and we can say that whatever we want it to be. Then, now that we've taken one level in Monk, we're jumping right back over to Fighter, because we need some very important things that make Archer Archer. At second level of Fighter, you get Action Surge, allowing you to make an entire extra action on your turn, or you have Tactical Mind, allowing you to use your second wind to add a D10 to a failed ability check, possibly turning it into a success. Then at third level of Fighter, you get a Fighter Subclass. And this is where we get to start utilizing the entire concept of how Archer works, because he has the ability to summon his weapons into existence and grab his weapons from an ethereal plane that is basically the unlimited blade works. So we're going to be diving into Eldritch Knight. This gives us some spellcasting, which we will dive through in just a minute. But more importantly, it gives us War Bond. So you can make a bond with your weapon, and you can do this to 2 weapons at a time. So if you lose your dagger or it gets broken or whatever, you can summon it back into existence and it can't be disarmed from you. And then at 4th level of Fighter, you get an ability score improvement, so we're going to boost up your dexterity by 2 points because it helps everything that is involved with this build. It helps your ranged attacks with a longbow, and you can use your dexterity for all of your dagger attacks, and it helps everything monk related. Overall, it's just pretty solid. At 5th level of Fighter, you get extra attack, allowing you to attack twice per action, and then if you use the Nick Weapon Mastery feature, you can attack 3 times per action, and if you're using your monk stuff, you can do 1 attack as your unarmed strike as well. And then also at this level, you get Tactical Shift, allowing you to move half of your speed when you use your second wind feature. So you are in a situation where you're badly hurt, you need to regain some hit points, so you use that and you can run half of your movement speed without provoking an opportunity attack. Then at 6th level of Fighter, you get another ability score improvement. So we're going to take a feat, and you're all about protecting the person that summoned you in the first place. As somebody in my chat over on Twitch mentioned, because we built this entire build on Twitch because we just kind of felt like it one day, we're going to take the feat Sentinel. That really helps us protect our allies. It allows us to boost up 1 ability score by 1 point. So we're going to go ahead and boost up your dexterity by 1 point. And it gives us 2 special features. The first one is Guardian. So if a creature tries to get away from you and they try and use the disengage action, you can still attack them. You can make an opportunity attack against them as long as they're still within range while they're trying to get away. But the other feature is probably a bit more important. It's called Halt. Halt makes it so when you make an opportunity attack against a creature, that creature's speed becomes 0. Then the next feature you get at 7th level of Fighter is War Magic. So this entire subclass allowed you to grab stuff from the wizard spell list, including a bunch of cantrips, which we're still going to go through those spells, just give me a second. However, thanks to War Magic, you can actually replace one of your attacks with 1 casting of a cantrip from being a wizard, as long as that casting time has an action, which means one of your strikes can deal a lot more damage because you can add in Booming Blade if you want to. And then at 8th level of Fighter, we're going to have our last level of Fighter, and we're going to get an ability score improvement. And we're going to take another feat because this build is still optimized, but allowing us to take a lot of feats throughout it. So this boosts an ability score by 1 more point. So we're going to boost up our dexterity again, but this gives us 2 features. The first one is improved dash. So when you use the dash action, your speed is boosted by an extra 10 feet because Archer is actually pretty damn fast. And then on top of that, we get the feature Charge Attack. So if you move at least 10 feet in a straight line during your turn, immediately before hitting with an attack roll, you can either push a target 10 feet further away, or you can deal an extra 1d8 of damage. You can only use this once on each of your turns, but an extra d8 of damage is just kind of cool to have. But now that we covered most of the levels in Fighter, we got to cover the spells really quickly. Now, we want something that allows us to attack really hard with at least one of our strikes, especially because we have that ability to swap out a cantrip for one of our attacks. So we're going to go ahead and grab Booming Blade. It's just a much more powerful dagger strike at this point. Then to attack everything all around us really quickly, we want Sword Burst. And some people might have called out that our armor class is going to be a little limiting at this point. Well, we can take care of that really early on with the first level spell, Mage Armor. So now our armor class is going to be 18 by default because we still have unarmored defense from being a monk. But that isn't affected by mage armor. And mage armor makes it so our armor class is 13 plus our dexterity modifier. So we don't have to worry about boosting our wisdom anymore, which is why we can utilize so many more feats in this build. And if you still need more armor class, go ahead and grab the spell Shield. It boosts up your armor class by another +5 just for the turn. When it comes to second level spells, make sure you're harder to hit with spells like Blur. And so far, all of these spells haven't required your intelligence modifier at all, except for Sword Burst, but that's only a very unique scenario. And we're gonna keep that train going because we have the ability to grab Magic Weapon, boosting up our weapon by +1, or we can summon another sword to our hand with Shadow Blade. And Shadow Blade still doesn't require our intelligence. It creates a weapon of solidified gloom in your hand. It deals 2d8 psychic damage, and it has the finesse, light, and thrown properties. And if you attack while in dim light or darkness, you have advantage on the attacks with this weapon. And considering how basically every fight in this show goes, it seems to be all at night, so I think you're going to have advantage a lot of the time. Now, we need one more spell, and it's the only one that is actually going to use our intelligence modifier, because we need to be able to summon unlimited amounts of blades, and this will still do damage even if they succeed on a saving throw, because we're going to grab Cloud of Daggers. Literally summons a bunch of daggers swirling around, dealing damage. But now that we covered all of those spells, let's jump back over to Monk, because this is going to get a little better. At second level of Monk, you get Monk's Focus, giving you a number of focus points equal to your level in Monk. You can spend those focus points on things like Flurry of Blows, allowing you to make 2 unarmed strikes as a bonus action instead of just 1. So now you can attack 3 times as your action and twice as your bonus action. You also have Patient Defense, allowing you to take the Disengage action as a bonus action. Or if you actually spend a focus point, you get to take the Disengage and Dodge action as a bonus action. Or there's Step of the Wind, allowing you to take the Dash action as a bonus action, which synchronizes very well with the fact that we took the Charger feat. And if you spend 1 focus point, you get the Disengage and Dash action, and you get to double your jump distance for the turn, all as a bonus action. And just boosting up your speed even more, at second level of Monk, you get Unarmored Movement, boosting your speed by +10, and that speed gets upgraded as you level up in Monk, giving you an additional 5 feet of movement at 6th level, 10th level, and 14th level, but we don't have enough to get to 14th level, so I guess we're not getting that fast, at least not yet. Also at second level, you get Uncanny Metabolism, so if you want to regain a bunch of focus points, you can do that, because at the start of an initiative check, you can regain all of your focus points. And doing so using this feature allows you to regain a bunch of health at the same time. You get to roll 1 roll of your martial arts die, then add in your Monk level and regain all of that in health. At 3rd level, you get Deflect Attacks, so you can reduce an attack coming at you as long as it has any physical properties to it, making it so you reduce it by 1d10, plus your Dexterity modifier, plus your Monk level, which is a huge reduction. And if you reduce it all the way to 0, you can spend 1 focus point to redirect the attack at somebody else. At 3rd level of Monk, you also get a Monk subclass, and we want to focus on our weapons a lot, so we're going to choose Way of the Kensai. This gives us the feature Path of the Kensai, so we can choose 2 weapons, a melee weapon and a ranged weapon. This allows us to choose our dagger and our longbow. And thanks to this feature, we get Agile Parry. So if you make an unarmed strike as part of your attack action in any way, shape, or form, and you still have your Kensai weapon in one of your hands, you can actually get a +2 to your armor class. Also, you get the ability Kensai Shot. So if you spend your bonus action, you can boost up your ranged attack damage by a 1d4. And there's something a little tricky about this wording. It doesn't specify that it is your ranged weapon. It's just your ranged attack. It can technically, if I'm reading this right, you can correct me in the comments, it should apply to your dagger if you throw it. So your dagger, you can basically do 3 attacks thanks to an extra attack, and also having the Nick Weapon Mastery feature, you can get more damage to it thanks to martial arts, because your martial arts die boosts up the damage of your daggers. So it's not doing a d4 of damage, it's doing a d6 of damage. And then on top of that, you can deal an extra d4 of damage to all of those attacks. And then you get another ability score improvement at level 4. So we're going to take another feat, and we're going to go with Speedy. This boosts our speed by another plus 10 because Archer is really freaking fast. And when you dash, dashing over difficult terrain doesn't require any extra movement anymore. Not to mention, opportunity attacks against you are always at disadvantage now. This also gives us a +1 to 1 ability score, so we're going to boost up our Constitution because we really don't need our Wisdom for basically anything except for one random feature in this general build, and we just don't have to use it that much. Also at 4th level of Monk, you get Slow Fall, allowing you to reduce the damage from falling by 5 times your Monk level. At 5th level of Monk, you get extra attack, but that doesn't stack with your Fighter extra attack, so we're not going to worry about that. But you do also get Stunning Strike, which is the only thing that would require your Wisdom modifier. So once per turn, you can spend a focus point to force a creature to make a Constitution saving throw. Otherwise, they're stunned, but even if they pass, you still have some bonuses here, making it so the next attack roll made against the creature has advantage, and their speed is cut in half. So it's still beneficial to use this, even if you think they're going to pass because of your lower Wisdom score. Also at 5th level, your Martial Arts die upgrades from a D6 to a D8. Those daggers are doing a lot more damage now. At 6th level of Monk, you get Empowered Strikes, so your unarmed strikes can deal its normal damage or force damage. Also at 6th level, you get another feature from Way of the Kensai called One with the Blade. So any attacks with your Kensai weapons are automatically magical by default, which is very helpful because you have a lot of weapons to summon. And you can use the feature Deft Strike. So once per turn, you can spend 1 focus point to deal an extra damage equal to your martial arts die. At 7th level of Monk, you get Evasion, making it so when you have to make a dexterity saving throw to avoid taking damage in the first place, you automatically take half damage, and if you succeed on the saving throw, you take 0 damage. At 8th level of Monk, you get another ability score improvement, so we're finally just going to take a normal ability score improvement with a +2 to our Constitution. At 9th level, you get Acrobatic Movement, so you can run across vertical surfaces and liquids during your turn, but you have to make sure you finish that movement during the turn. Then at 10th level of Monk, you get Heightened Focus. So all of your stuff you spend focus points on by default, you get a boost to them. So you have an improved Flurry of Blows. So if you use Flurry of Blows, you can now make 3 attacks as your bonus action. So that means you get 3 attacks as your action, 3 attacks as your bonus action, and if you want, you can use Action Surge to make 2 more attacks as your action. Then Patient Defense gets upgraded, giving you a bunch of temporary hit points when you use it, and Step of the Wind gets increased because it allows you to bring a creature with you in the process. At 10th level of Monk, you get Self-Restoration, so you can remove a charmed, frightened, or poison effect on yourself, and you don't really need to eat much anymore to prevent exhaustion. At 11th level, you get another feature from being a Way of the Kensai called Sharpen the Blade. So as a bonus action, you can spend 3 focus points to give yourself up to a +3 with your Kensai weapon, which is a pretty massive boost in D&D. Also at this level, your martial arts die increases from a D8 to a D10, so those daggers are hitting pretty darn hard. And then at 12th level of Monk, which is the max level of this build, you get another ability score improvement. And since this is all the way at 20th level, we get to choose an epic boon. And I felt like just paying a bit of homage to the namesake of the show and taking the Boon of Fate. So if you or another creature within 60 feet of you fails a D20 test, you can add 2d4 to the roll, or you can actually use this to apply a penalty instead. You can only use this feature once per short or long rest, but it doesn't require a reaction or anything like that. So it can just kick in and you can use other reactions for stuff if you need to. This also boosts up 1 ability score by 1 point, so we're going to boost up your Constitution by 1 more point. That brings us to 20th level overall, and it's a bit of a weird combo, but I tried to optimize it the best I can, and based on how I took the levels, I think it's pretty usable throughout the entirety of the build. I'm kind of proud of myself for this one, and this has actually been requested a bunch of times in the comments, and I'm happy I actually got to build this on Twitch with people commenting and chatting about what I should do and help me out here, because I kind of got stuck a few times. But if you want access to the character sheet for this build or any of my other builds, feel free to check out my Patreon, linked in the description down below, where you can get access to all that or just help support this channel. And if you made it all the way to the end of this video, let me know by hitting that like button, and I'll be here helping you roll at least 3 nat 20s in your next D&D session, especially if you want to dive into the absolutely crazy Fate universe and play as Archer from Fate Stay Night Unlimited Blade Works in Dungeons & Dragons.